Right, so at the moment I've got it all set up on the HDMI connected to a cam link just to record this part of the video. So I got the setting is on the automatic mode, so by clicking OK, as you can see the white balance is all automatic. I've got a manual focus lens on, which is the Samyang 12mm, but I can still readjust the ratios and what format I want. So normally I go with RAW files, but I can do JPEGs, which are super fine, normal, large normal, medium normal, but also have RAW and JPEG of different sizes. And then these are the different video qualities you can go. So you can get 720, which is standard HD, Full HD, and 4K video at 30 frames. And that's the max. These are usually my recommended video file, which is 30 frames per second. And then these are different filter modes, but by scrolling, if we go down one to scene mode. So with scene mode, if you go to the control panel, which is on the top left right next to the on-off switch, by pressing that, you get these different options here. And these are just automatic JPEG settings, so very easy and very intuitive. So let's go, for example, scenery. And then you'll get different options on what you want to do. Let's just say landscape. And if you go and click OK, you'll have different options, and these are all automatic. Well, in most cases it'll be used for JPEGs, but you can also edit in RAW files if you want to do more post-processing. Now, going down one more. This is the more advanced mode, so by clicking on your control panel again, so the button on the left side of the camera, press that. And this is where you get the additional stuff such as live composite, live time, multiple exposure, high dynamic range, so HDR mode, silent mode, panorama, keystone compensation, AE bracketing, even gives you the information through it, so that's going to capture multiple varying exposures, so forth. Oops, go back again. And we've got focus bracketing for macro photography. Alright, next, just going down one more, is all the art filters. So by clicking up here, and again, now you got a bit more options to adjust the ISOs to the highest, which is 25,600, which is the highest ISO performance, and lowest is usually about probably less than just around 100 ISO. But looking at your filters, so these are all the different filters Olympus OM system or Olympus currently have for the E-M10 Mark IV. And again, you can adjust. Actually, you can't even do RAW files on this one, so that's pretty understandable. Going down one more, so going down the next one is your video modes. So let's go back to normal setting. Yep. And over here we've got different options, so you can say if you want the video to be more focused on aperture priority. So it's all going to be controlled by aperture, controlled by shutter. You control your shutter. But I usually go with manual mode as I'm able to adjust the speed. Well, how fast I want the video quality. Well, not so much how fast. How crisp the video quality is. So at the minimum, which is 30th, if I were to rotate the camera It's much smoother compared to if I go to 250th of a second. That's going to get really jittery for video, and that's where ideally when you get to a setting like 1/30th of a second for video, the neutral density filter would be in front of the lens here, just to readjust that, just all the highlights and stuff, and the exposure. Otherwise, you can always bring down that aperture. And then next is your standard manual, shutter, aperture, and program mode. And this is where you get all the controls. And by hitting the control panel, you also get more additional options here. So this is where you can change so if you want to do continuous shooting or silent shooting, you can do that. Unfortunately in here, there's no high resolution photo, which is always after this custom timer. I will also mention in the menu soon enough that you can also do time lapses on this camera as well. And then shutter priority, so it's all focusing on shutter and exposure compensation. Aperture priority, again, because I'm using a manual full manual focus lens, I'm actually controlling the aperture from the lens itself. But you can see how much the shutter changes when I'm adjusting the aperture. Lastly is program mode, which is now personally I don't often use program mode, but so it looks like it just focuses more on just the exposure compensation. Now just go back into manual mode here, and I do cycle through menus, just the menu. So this feature here is one I commonly use now, which is the digital teleconverter. So at the moment, so my lens is a 12mm, and by hitting that, it's much closer than it was just before. Just show difference. And if I switch it back on again and take a photo, I think I got it set on to JPEG, so I'll just it's a JPEG, so I'll go back to RAW. I just click again and go back, so I'll go into play. So everything in that square is actually the digital teleconversion, so that's a digital crop right there. And going into continuing on, so I'll just switch that off. So we got your different metering modes, and then your autofocus illuminator, so that's your little orange LED light, which is just on the front left of the camera. Your image stabilization, and with this you can start customizing how you want to do it by hitting the info. Usually by hitting the info button, especially when hit the right button here when you're in the menu, and then you can adjust your focal length. So at this stage I'm using a 12mm, so it's at 12. But you can also adjust that in your control panel here, and then just by pressing info you can also adjust it from there. Electric zoom speed, so that's if you're using an electric zoom lens, you can adjust how fast you want it. And with lenses like the 14 to 42 kit lens for the Olympus or OM system, you have a digital zoom. Over here is your flash control, so you can actually control the exposure value for flash. Oops. Then here we go. Here's your time-lapse settings. It lets you give you an idea, and you can go all the way up to 999, I mean, if you want. And you can also save it as a movie, and how many frames per second you want it to be. And then got the silent setting modes right here. And I've switched it all off, so that way it just doesn't make any sounds whatsoever, so any extra sounds from the camera, such as beeping or anything like that. And that one there's your controlling external flash mode. Record volume, as you can, with the built-in microphones, you can adjust the volume for the microphones. Same thing, image stabilization, your playback modes, and this one here is your main, just your extra controls. Even so, by going on to here, so you got your face detection mode, which I would switch off, especially switch on. I'd switch on if I'm doing portraits or anything like that. And you got manual focus assist, so you can either magnify the focus or you use focus peaking. Button functions, and on the main three buttons are the three on the right next to the dials. So you have your magnification, record, and AEL, which is what they're automatically set up to, but you can readjust it. And then playback button, so you got your sharing, printing, then dial functions. You can also change the focus peaking color. I think that one there's actually the sound one. HDMI mode and USB modes. You can also add noise reduction into the camera, but if you're shooting raw photos, it's better to just try and leave it off, especially because you can do it in post. You got your bulb modes and live composite settings, flash settings, white balance and color settings, and then your personal settings. So that's just for your copyright name and stuff like that. EVS switch auto. Oh yes, that's the switching from the electronic viewfinder and the LCD screen. Pixel mapping. And here's your card setting and your Wi-Fi settings. Cool. And that's pretty much most of the settings for the Olympus EM10 Mark IV.